Hi boys and girls, welcome back to week 4 of our arts and crafts. Bryan here to give you some more painting. So this time we're going to do like a sort of harbour scene that's like an abstract. And it's very easy. This is it here. And all we've really got is a line there, a line of boats and some more boats, and I'll guide you through what we're going to be doing with that. So I'll take you through the materials. You should have your sets by now. So you've got the usual brushes. You've got the big brush for doing the skies, and you've got the pointy brush, but it's like a 6 or an 8, so it's got quite a thick head on it, so it's quite good. And you've got your wee chisel brush, your wee flat brush for doing all your marking out, and that's good for drawing around the boats as well. And then you've got your little detail brush as well. So I'll just introduce you to the palette that we're going to be using. This is it here. So we've got our white, our titanium white, and I've put 2 reds out here. I think you've got 2 reds in your set. You've got a deep red, which is crimson, and a nice bright scarlet red, or even vermilion would do. You've got phthalo green, you've got ultramarine, and you've got serenium blue. I don't know if you've got that in your palette, but I'll show you how you can make something similar to that, just by using these 2 with white. Can sometimes give you something like that. Then you've got Payne's grey, so that's good for doing all your marking out, your shadows and your lines. And then you've got ultramarine, sorry that's raw umber. Can't remember if I used raw umber in that, but I'll keep it anyway. And we've got lemon and yellow ochre. So they're nice kind of warm colours for mixing up these nice creamy tones as well. Okay, so we'll get started. And of course you've got your water and your tissue, and that's all we should need to get started. Okay, so I'm going to just take out my wee flat brush, and that's for doing my lines. So we'll dip it into a wee bit of water, not too wet, so just dab it on your tissue like that. And you can take your ultramarine. Ultramarine's quite a neutral colour because it can fall into like shadows and things like that as well, and you can see it. So I'm not going to bother much with a pencil with this, I'm just going to start laying this out. So as usual, I usually put a wee knit there about halfway, or roughly, and I do the same to this picture, about halfway there. And if I do that now, you can see the horizon line, or the furthest away line, is only a wee bit above it. It's not quite half, it's just a bit above it. So that gives me an idea where my lines are going to go. So I'm just going to go about 1.5 inches, I would say. So it's just a wee sort of dotted line now, and I'll go back to that. Okay, so I'm not even going to bother cleaning my brush because I've got Payne's grey here, and as you know, Payne's grey is a mix of black and white and blue. So if I still have ultramarine on my brush, I can dip straight into the Payne's grey there, and that makes it even blacker looking, makes it stronger. So I can add a little bit of water to that as well. And you want it quite loose for doing the lines. So the easiest way to go about this is just do sort of scribbly lines like this, 3 spaces in between them. Just get that as dark as you can. If you're adding plenty of water, make sure there's plenty of paint with it, so it's not too watery or too thick with paint. So you're really just kind of doing something like this. It's getting quite dry, and the reason for that is this is quite a smooth brush, and it's nice for doing smooth lines, but sometimes it dries out quicker on you. That's where the brittle brushes are good, but I like this one because it gives you smoother lines. So I'll go back to that. That's going to give me wee spaces to put boats in, and I'm really only going to be doing something like this. So if you take this picture, it's just sky and water, which is more or less the same colours. All the boats are sitting on that line that I've just done, and then there's only 2 or 3 boats in front, so that's how easy it is. Okay, so I'm going to put this brush down now. I'll go back to that later. I don't want to dirty my water too much, so I'll just keep it moist now. And I'll go for my big brush, dip it into the water, and I'm going to be using lots of white and a little bit of the lemon. As because you won't see the light immediately. So a lot of this picture is about the light source. I was talking before about the light source and how to see where the light's coming from. You can see the left hand side of all the boats are brighter and the left hand's darker, so the light's obviously coming from here. So we'll make sure we keep the light there and try not to centre it in the middle, just take it off the centre just a little bit. So plenty of yellow and plenty of white. Now that's quite strong, and the reason I use lemon is the yellow is just too strong. But always mix white with it. If you mix white in most of your pastel colours, you can't go wrong. Okay, so big brush, and I'm just going to cover most of that now. And if you feel it, I mean that's quite a lot on you, but you can control what you put on just by lifting some wee bits off. That's a wee bit strong there. And if I get too much yellow on it, it will just go green. And a wee bit green in the sky is okay, but not too much. So I'm just going to wash my brush, take some of that. I usually work with 2 pots of water in case one goes quite dark and I'm still on pastel colours, you can go back to a cleaner water. So I'm just going to get a bit more white. And I'll just work up a few of the white because that's pretty wet now, and then I'll work this in. But be quite generous with the white, put it on quite thick. And if you get out in circles again, that covers all the canvas. That's really covered. The brush is sounding a wee bit scrapey and there might be a wee So now that this is drying out a little bit more, and you can help to dry it a bit more just by doing that, and that lifts a wee bit as well. So you see the blue coming off that, but that's absolutely fine. You can even go like this. You can just wet that wee bit and just make that wee bit powdery, which we'll be doing anyway. So you see that gives you quite nice effects already. So we'll be doing a lot of kind of powdery marks over there. So I've picked up a little bit of that blue there, so I'm just going to clean my brush again. Bit of white. White's like a correction blue as well. So you're overlapping, and you're doing this quite a lot with abstracts, you're sort of overlapping things. And I tend to use my fingers quite a lot, but I do put a wee barrier cream on my fingers, my hands first, just so that it protects them. So if you are going to use your fingers a lot, just make sure you've protected your skin a wee bit. And it's only water-based paint, so it should be alright, but just to be the safe side, you'd better put a wee barrier cream on your hands. Right, so I could take another bit of this here. I might take a tissue, a paper towel, because it's a wee bit tougher here, and that's just to sort of soak it up. If you see lots of lines on it, you might not see this now with the light shining on it, but it'll dry in. And it's pretty plain at the moment. So I'm just going to pick up my brush, which has got a bit of light in it, and I'll start off with a bit of cerulean blue. Now, maybe I should show you, if you don't have cerulean blue, I'll maybe show you how you can make a wee bit of that up for something near it. So if I wet my brush, take a bit of white on this palette here, put a tiny little bit of ultramarine, that gives you a sort of denim blue. And then if you take a little bit of the phthalo green, just put a little bit of that in there, and that gives you a sort of turquoise. And then you just keep building that up to the blue that you want, and if you want it a wee bit more turquoise, put a little bit more of the phthalo green in. Right. So it's not far away. If you look at that and you look at the other one, it's not far away from that. Okay. So since I've got that on, I'll just use a wee bit of that up. So that's quite strong, but everything on here is quite wet. So you can use wee sponges for this, or you can use your wee soft brush. I think I've explained before, some of these are brittle brushes and some are nice wee soft brushes, not watercolour brushes but nice wee synthetic brushes that get a wee spring in them. But they're good for like blending like that, so that you don't get any lines. They're great for doing skinnies. So you can use anything, you can use soft brushes, sponges, anything at all. Right, so I'm just going to be right up the top of the board now, and I'm basically going to get a big brush and cleaning everything off my brush and use it on the board, because my light should just be down there, so you're sort of covering all your light now. I'll show you different colours that you can put in there. You might get some small areas with a bit more greeny, so you can take a wee bit more of that and just make it a wee bit more sort of turquoise so that it stands out. You see it coming up now, so that's quite nice. You don't want a lot of this because little bits are better, they stand out better if it's just little bits that you put on. Right, so try and get a wee bit more of that down there. So without cleaning my brush again, I'm going to put a wee bit of Payne's Grey onto this. And I'm just going to put it straight onto this mix because it is my sky colour. I'm just going to put it straight in there. And I'm just going to go straight up the corners. And like I said before, if you keep dark colours round about the edges, it makes you zoom into the light even more. So it's quite nice for your colours. So I can add a wee bit more blue, darker blue and Payne's Grey, so that'll make it nice and dark. It's pretty wet now, so everything's soaking into it. But I can go back and put a bit more on later. A little bit up there. This will be quite nice, you see the light coming through when I do this. So this is your Payne's Grey. If you don't have Payne's Grey, just use ultramarine, black and a bit of white. Or even brown, you can do it as well, just to make up a grey. So you can see the wee lights coming through there now. Just make sure your fingers clean of your brush. And that brings in some of those nice lights there. I might put a wee bit more yellow in there as well. So it's up to you, whatever you want to do the scan. You can go back and do that, but now I'm just going to create a wee sort of frame line around it with some dark. And this helps to bring up that. If you see me marking with the brush like that, again, just smooth them in. It's getting to quite a nice stage now. It's not too wet, and you can smooth it in quite nicely now. A little bit more there. See the light coming through there, so just keep it nice and soft. Your edges. And there. So in order to show this up here, you want some dark round about here. I'm just going to put this straight on my line here. Kind of semi-wet there, so it'll blend into it quite nicely. Now another colour, I can't mind if I used it there or not because I did that one quite quickly. But you can mix up without cleaning your brush because you're working with the same colours. I'm going to mix a little bit of purple. So I'm going to take my crimson red and my ultramarine there, and I'm just going to make a nice purple. And I'm just going to put that straight in there and there. And everything's fairly wet, but you can take your brush and just mould it in. Not too wet, mould it into a nice powdery line. That's quite a nice subtle shadow around about your light there. And you can put, just to balance the picture, just put a few in other places. The more you put up there, the more that light comes through, see that? There's a nice wee bit of light there as well, so nice wee subtle dark colour there too. So you can spend as much time as you like on the scan, you can go back to that later if you like as well. Go get that a wee bit darker up this colour. You can see the minute you put the dark on, the light comes up. So this is my wee smoothie brush, just for blending it in. And then what you can do is dry your brush off a little bit. You don't have to clean the colour off, but just dry it. That makes it a bit more powdery round about the edges. So almost keeping the brush on its side there. Right, without cleaning it again, just a little bit of white on there now, just to bring that. Just going to put that on my finger because there's one of the reasons that I use my fingers sometimes as well is because there's nothing else on them. There's not another colour mixed in with your brush or anything. So. Right, so I'll leave that now and it's going to be what did I just use? Put a wee bit, so just be careful with the yellow, it's not too much. It's quite good to put it on if your paint's wet. It'll sit on it quite nice. So I'll go back to the sky, just give that some time to dry and it'll work better to put the finishing touches on it once it's a bit dry as well. So, just clean my brushes now. So I'm going to use my flat brush again. And hopefully some of these will be a bit drier, but I would like them a wee bit darker before I start putting in my bolts. So what I'll do is, brush is nearly dry, a bit of ultramarine and a bit of paint grey. You can add anything into this to make it darker. You can put crimson in it as well, anything that you think will make it darker. I try not to use black, I try and just use colours to mix. Right, so I'm just going to, see that's better, a bit darker. So I'm just going to fill in some of these little spaces and I'm going to create some bolts out of those vacant spaces. So it's an abstract, it's very rough, it doesn't have to be perfect. You can even create some wee shapes and things, and these are good as well for doing your sails, but I'll do some of these later on. Okay, so I'm just going to wash that brush out in my dark water there. Now, before I do anything else, while that's drying, I'm going to tackle some of the colours in the water, which again is just much like the sky. So we'll just get a kind of base on the water. Because most of the colours that's going to be on the water is reflections from your boats, so we'll just get a kind of base tone. So we'll start with some white and a little bit of yellow, not as much yellow this time. And we'll just basically, some people would do a big area like this with a sponge or something, that's alright as well. And you can use bigger brushes in this. Big brushes are great because you can cover the board really good and quick. Now, I won't go across the way. I want to just make sure I go around these circles to make sure all my canvas grains are all used up. And then I can finish off that one. You'll certainly have the kind of yellow white notes at its brightest. So just make sure that every bit of the canvas is all moved up. I'm not bothering too much with that because I'll draw my boats and then put that line triangle. Right. So far I've not used the cerulean blue at all, I've just used the mix that I showed you there, so I'm just going to mix another bit of that up. But before I do, I'm going to just take all the yellow of this because I don't want it going too green. If that touches blue, it might go a bit green. Okay, so here we go. Some more white, I'll take a fresh area there. Some more white, a little bit of ultramarine. So that should get, you should get a nice kind of denim blue there. A bit more. Turquoise green. Greeny blue, so we'll start that again. So a nice denim blue and then a little bit of your green. Not much of the green because it'll go too green. And if it does go too green, just add another bit of your blue and that looks good now. Right, so just want. You can hear these scrapings in this thing. So I'm just going to do a wee bit of this now, just to get the. Now I want to keep this bit nice and light, so just make sure that you lift a wee bit of that, and then it can come back up this side. A bit more. I think it's going to be alright anyway. Right, so we're going to put a little light into this at the bottom. And if I all smooth it, takes all the lines away and you get a nice smoothness. It's quite a nice new layer as well. So you get that light coming right down, so just make sure you leave some light, not so much at that side, although you'll have reflections there. So we'll go back to those kind of bits later on. Okay, I'm going to get a tiny little bit more green onto my blue there, so that I can pick up a tiny bit more of the sort of turquoise tones just up here. And whatever colour that you decide to use, just make sure you balance it. Put some of that up there, put some down there, and there's some in the sky, so it's well balanced. That gives your picture a nice calm look as well when you get your colours balanced. Okay, so I can lift up a wee bit of the ultramarine and put it in this. I don't really want the green so much now, just the ultramarine. So I can go back there, I'm just putting a wee bit of them in now. My brush is a wee bit scrapey, so I'm just going to blend them in just a little bit, make them a bit more smoother. Wee sort of curve on this, which is fine. Just wee ripples. You put a dark colour over the top of something light, you get that transparency coming through as well. So you get big blocks of colours like that and it'll bring up the colours right as well. Now, you don't want big harsh lines there, so just soften it with water there. You can just always use your tissue. I sometimes use whites as well, it picks up just the right amount to take off. I can be putting more highlights on that later anyway. Okay. White is always your saviour, it just gives you a nice wee base to work on. You do more rather than less so that you can work round about it. Okay, just try not to work on too much when it's wet on wet because you'll run into some problems there and you'll find it's hard to work on. I'm just going to smooth that out just a tiny bit there. So the bolts will go over. Right, so that's a wee bit damp there, but that's okay to work on. Right, so I'm going to now work on some of the little boats, which is the smooth brush. Make sure you've got some nice clean paper towels. So these wee bits up here, we'll just put some boats in here. So this, you need quite a nice, good white. That's how the titanium white is nice and opaque, and it's thick. If it's a runny white, it won't show very well. So I'm just going to do some little boats. You can do your own, you don't have to make them the same as this. But you want this to be dry so that your boats come up. And they overlap one another, so don't worry too much about the shapes or anything like that, it's just so that sometimes you just see these white lines, it's just enough to give you the configuration of some boats. Put some colours on that later. So that's just enough to make that look really busy in that corner. So I'm keeping all the darks in between it because that's what makes the boats stand out. And I'm doing the white as a base now, and then you can give them some colours. But make sure that you put the dark in between them all because that's what makes them all stand out without having too much detail. Right, so I'm going to clean my brush and I'm going to use my darker colour to do the boats in front of this, just because it's against the cool water. The white won't work, so I'm just going to use my Payne's grey mix I've got there. You don't have to have it exact same as that, but you can do a few wee boats, just keep them flat on the water, some in front of the other. I'm just blocking in a wee bit more dark here. There's some more boats there. I think one's sitting out in the front there just a little bit. So I'm using the dark for the negative space, the background space there as well. So basically every boat should be outlined with the dark so that it stands out. So there's a wee boat there. Go back and do detail to that. So there's other boats now when they come in front of you. So I've got 1, 2, 3 that I really want to show off there in front of them, and the rest are just going to be extras, so that makes it easier if you just stick to about 3. It's a bit like doing trees in a forest, you don't have to do every single one, but there's always 2 or 3 that gives you a wee kind of idea of one perspective, one in front of the other. So I'm just going to go to the middle there and maybe do one like that first. So these can be quite big. Bit like a sort of bathtub shape to start with, and then behind that you might get one sticking out a wee bit shallower, but just enough to come over it, and then behind that you might get another one going like that, and then in front of that one you've got a space, and you've got this one sticking up quite a wee bit, and this one might go down that way a wee bit more, like that. So I've probably brought it down a wee bit lower than that, but it's fine. So there's a few more up here as well, so kind of do the peaks so that they stand out, and then another one in front of that. So there'll be a lot of interruption of shadows at each side of them, so you'll see them better once all the shadows are in. And then you've got something like this. A couple of wee sailing boats just sort of sitting there. Sometimes wee sailing boats are just a wee bit like this, it's like a wee cup, like that, with a wee lid on it, and then it's got the wee sail going up, like that, so that'll be coloured in. I'll put the lights on that later, you can maybe do another wee one there. So I'm making it a wee bit different to the first picture, and the idea of this is make everything overlap. So we'll go back to doing the big sails on that. Okay, so there's a few more wee boats here. There might be ones that are sticking up a wee bit more, like that. Okay, and there might be just another one. They're all sitting all ways now. So what I'm going to do is try and darken my dark in between them now to make them stand out. I'll go back with some colours and things later on. Just so that you can pick up the light quite a bit. So we don't need detail, it's just an impression that we can go back. And all we want to do is put dark things round about each boat to make them stand out. Okay, so I'm going to pick up a bit more of the dark now. And I'm just going to fill in all my wee negative spaces, the background now. So where there's a boat there, there'll be a wee bit dark. Now that dark will be part of that boat, so just let it blend in. And the same with that one there will be dark. Now this is where you can mix up some of your purple tones and things like that. And you can put in wee bits of purple and blue. I could probably turn that into another boat there actually. I'll just keep it dark. Put some wee bits of purple. Now if you've got another wee brush and you can put some white onto the boat, that gives a nice blend when you two go together, so it looks like a white boat that's just went into your shadow. I'll just show you that. It's a wee bit wet up there now, but I'll go back to that. So that's your white. Make sure you've got a clean finger or a clean brush and just blend it in. And that's how you get the dark and into the light. So remember the light's at the left hand side, so everything should be nice and light on that side. A bit wet to start with, but once these dry in, you go back and just freshen up the whites a wee bit more. Make them stand out. So you're basically doing that on all of them. So there's a wee dark shadow there. So peek it up over the top of that other boat so that it shows up, and then go into the bottom. Try and keep your dark outline as well. Now if that's light and that's light, I need to separate them, so I need to put in a dark line. I'll keep my other wee brush there, just to keep my darker bit. And that keeps that separate from that one. And same with that there. It can go a wee bit darker. So you can get right into that. So this wee bit of dark that's on here, I'm just going to use it for this boat behind, like a wee shadow. But you don't have two darks together or two lights together. So if I've got dark there, this will go light. I want to get that just a wee bit darker than the first. Just because it's white there, it's going to peel very easily. So I'll put a wee bit dark at the bottom. And then I want to take the white, just make sure I've not picked anything up. Yeah. And then it's the same with that side there, wee dark line there. Okay, so you've got the dark and the light, so that's what you're doing all the time. So if that's dark there, that's going to be light there. So that's what makes them work. Okay, so just to make it a wee bit easier, get all the darks and the negative spaces first. And you can see where you're going with it better. So there's dark in there, there's dark in there. And we'll be dark at the bottom of that boat. We'll get proper colours on them in a minute, it's just to show the light and dark now. So that's the white ground. It's picking up a bit of grey because it's really wet now. So sometimes you maybe need to take your time with this picture and go back and work on bits when it's dry. But you can get as much done as you can to lay it out. And then it's nice to go back when it's a bit drier and do some detail. Okay, so what we're going to do is just clean my brushes now. They're getting a bit thick with paint and everything's getting a bit wet, so just clean up a wee bit first. Right, so some fresh white. Just fill in these big pots now. I'm not saying they're all going to be white, it's just to make them stand out now. You can see them back over them, getting a wee bit lighter now. Make some stand out a wee bit at the top. So this is a nice wee flat brush. And it's like a wee razor at the end, it's so fine, so you get nice wee fine lines. And that's how it's good for drawing. So, not in a lot of detail, but you could do a wee boat there with like a wee top on it. Just a wee bit at the bottom of the boat showing you. And just to show that off a wee bit, you can put a wee line round about that to separate that boat from that one. Right, so we can go back and do some colours on there as well. Right. So I'm just going to take the white off my brush and I'll just kind of splash a few wee colours. So we'll get this at a deep red first. Some of these are still a bit wet, so you can just do a line on them. So I'm just doing a balance of some of the colours again. I'm not wanting too much of one colour on anything, so I'm just doing a wee sort of balance in these colours come through. And then I'll clean my brush and pick another colour. You can get a nice wee sort of jade green and a wee bit of lemon there just to tone it down a wee bit. And this will stand out quite a bit, but we can tone it down, so I'm not too worried about that. I'm not doing detail at all, it's only an impression. So just a wee bit of colour here and there. And maybe get some purple as well, so a wee bit of the blue and the red, mind the deep red. So, just a bit in the middle there. So I'm not even bothered too much about shapes or anything like that. This one might just be a wee shadow on here. So I'll go back and do some more detail in that later. I can put a wee bit of shadow on that side to show that that's a different side. But they're so far away I shouldn't really have much detail on them at all. Right, so I might get a wee bit of white and the pink, a bit of red, and just put some wee tones in some of these boats here. So that'll make that one stand out even more. And then I'll finish it off with fresh white in a minute. So I'll do a couple more like that. Just every colour that you choose, just make sure you've got it somewhere else so that you get a nice balance. Right, so what I'm going to do now, I've got a few colours going on there now. I might get a wee bit of, they're all quite pastel colours, I might get a few darker tones. So, for instance, I could make these a wee bit darker. Still not like to put on these, so put that on later. And I'll maybe do another wee boat there, so I'm just getting a bit of these colours. These are just good for the reflections in the water. Right, so I'll go back to some of them. Right, so I'm going to start now going down a bit and putting some dark shadows. So you'll see in between all the boats you've got this dark bit here to make all the boats stand out. So I'm just going to make sure that I've got this even down here. So shape the boat around the boat. You want that really dark. So anything that makes it dark. So I'm now coming down there. What I'm going to do this time is I'm going to drag it a wee bit, just next to that boat. But there's a wee bit of blue in that, so this is just the dark shadows first. So where the dark is there, just kind of pull wee bits down like that. And then it drags that down. I want this really dark. So there's a wee shadow there, a wee line and a wee shadow, and then that's going to get pulled down. So right at the corner, it sharpens up the shape of each bolt. Picking up a bit of light here, sort that in a minute. So right in the corner there, you want that to be dark, otherwise that won't show. Go right round it like that, and then just kind of go like that. So that's the dark coming in there, and this wee bit of dark here. So you've got a bit of dark going like that. So that will show up the bolts, and then you can pull it. You can turn the brush both ways. Sometimes you just want a line, and sometimes you want the whole thing pulled. So the same there. Just pull this in here as well. So just get it nice and dark. That shapes each bolt. You can even get around each bolt like that to make sure you're getting the shapes. And then just kind of sit it there like that, and then drag a wee bit. These ones are further back, so you don't have to come down as much. And get a wee bit there as well. So again, taking that round about there, in between the bolts. And just make sure it doesn't go too dry, you won't be able to get the drag coming down. You're just going to do that. Right, so that's the dark bits, with still all the colours to put in. This one here's going to, it's a wee bit drier now, so I'll get them a wee bit whiter. But I just want to get these bits really dark. Anything that's dark. So, just kick up a bit of light. I suppose you could use black if you want, but as long as you put colours into it as well, don't just use black on its own because it can turn out grey sometimes. So it's a wee bit wet there, but I'm just going to get it a wee bit darker. So I want that bolt there to stand out, and I want that bolt there to stand out, so that's where all my dark would be. I want that bolt there to stand out. Everything's pretty wet at the moment. So I want these to get really dark in between. And even underneath that would be quite dark as well. So you can see it getting light again, so you just got to keep making that dark up. It's quite good at this stage if you do add a wee bit of your pale green in, because that's going to get into the water anyway, see that? That'll just act as a shadow in the water. Okay, so just make sure, again, all the darks are in. And even inside some of the bolts, just put a wee bit of shadow. Sometimes a wee thing like that can just help to make it look a wee bit more 3D. Right, so I'm now going to take, I might just use this brush. I'm going to use my bigger brush there, but I feel as if it might be too big to get the reflections in. So this is the white reflections I'm going for now. So make sure you get nice fresh whites. What I might do, I'll wash this brush. I don't want to put the white on that brush. So I'll wash that, take all the glue off it. And that's better for dragging down to get the wee sort of drags rather than the soft brush, but I'll put it under the soft brush and then drag it down, so that might be what I do. So where the front of the bolts are quite light there, just round about there, just underneath, not directly, just a bit there, you'll get a wee drag of the white, like that. And the same there, so there's pressing them up first. And just watch it pick any other colour up. nice fresh white, and just look underneath the boat. So you're coming around there. Now this brush might be good for dragging. That's better. So I'm going to use in between there for some colours, like reflective tones in there. So there's a wee bit of white in that one there, so I'll just put a wee bit like that. This is further back so it doesn't take him down too much. So that's good for dragging that down. Okay. I want to get this one nice and white. These are your kind of feature ones at the front, but they are pretty wet at the moment. See if I can get a couple of them up here first while they're drying. So these are just wee tiny ones. And I'll put a wee extra white on one up here, just so I can get another wee drag in it. Right. Okay, so you've got some colours. This is the light coming down here. So you've got some yellow in there and there. And I only want a tiny bit of that. So these are actually on the water. I'm not looking for these to be sort of drags because they're going to go across the way, but I want to let them drag a wee bit first, but I just wanted some of that in first. Okay, so I'm just using some wee highlighter that's still on the brush. Now I want to get this one nice and light. The drier it is, the better for coming back in the second layer. So you can sort of blend that in. Oops, that's because it's really wet, that's okay. Actually this could probably come out a wee bit from I'm going to use my little brush again as an outline here. Now, I've got a clean finger left, but I can still get enough just to blend it in there. And that gives me a nice white there. So I'll get another wee bit of white just to catch up with there. Just trying to get it. Okay, so I'm going to be using some darker tones down here, so that'll bring up the whites a bit more as well. White there. I've got quite a lot of white on the side of the brush, so I'm just going to use some of it there and then drag it up. Always keep your wee dark brush handy as well, because if that's got a wee bit dark on it there, you can blend that in and it gives it a nice wee blend. So it still looks like a white boat, but it's just going into the shadow there. Okay, so now if you end up with something like that, that's fine. But what you can do to rectify that is just bring this down another tiny wee bit. There, that saves you having to fiddle about really things like that. So we've got some colours in here, you can see pink's going in there, so I'm going to pick up a little bit of that pink. Just watch it doesn't get too strong though. So that's this pink here, and I just want a little bit of that in here. So you're picking up some of the tones now. Some of these are through, but they're very, very gentle on it, they're not that strong. So just between your light and dark, you can introduce some of the little colours. These ones have got more green in them. They're bit more paint in through there, so you can just between the light and the dark, you can start getting some colours. Really get up there. So you get a balance of that, going right through there. So I'm going to clean the brush on and get a wee bit of the green. It's quite strong the green, so I just wanted to go somewhere between the dark and the light. Not enough on that. So actually there's a wee bit there. So I don't want to spoil the white bits. The colours are just wee tiny bits that's shown. So that's why I'm sort of sitting them next to the dark. Right, so I'll give my whites a wee bit time to dry and then I'll go back in and freshen up the reflections for the white. So now I can use a wee bit green on that, but I'll just clean it. I can get a wee bit of the greeny colour made up again. I'm using ultramarine and I'm just going straight in with the pale green this time, a wee bit darker. So what I want to get here now is some lines going this way, because that's my reflections in, and I want to get some lines going this way. And it's, once you start getting the lines going this way, that goes on with the reflections, but I'm not going to get up there with the lines now. I'm trying to keep most of the lines at the bottom. So I'm just going to be a bit sort of curvy in this. And then we'll get some wee blocks in as well. Some wee blocks on that end. That shows the bottom a bit better as well. So I'll wait till I've done my whites in before I go over some of them. The lights, keep the lighting down, you don't block it too much there. So in between that, I've got quite a lot of the blue going there now. In between it, I'm going to try and get a wee bit more turquoisey colours going in as well. Because the yellow gives it a wee bit transparency there. But just before I do that, I'll put the turquoise in first. And then I'll just smooth it all out. So this is looking quite greeny, so I'm just going to sort of sit them beside the blues. Some overlap and some on their own. Bit coming out there. Right, so what I'm going to do now is take the big brush. I might still have a wee bit white on that, but I'm not putting water or anything on it, I'm just smoothing it out. So remember this light's to stay here. So the excess light that's on there, I'm just going to smooth it. And that applying the veil down a wee bit as well. So the veil just tones them down a bit. So my brush is dry, it's quite spaced out, so I just want, that's all I want, is just wee dot bits on it like that. So sometimes as well, if you get a wee dot bit like that, you can actually do wee sparkles like that as well. So that's a good stage to get that and come over there a wee bit as well. So that's down in the foreground. You can do quite a lot of that. Right, my brush is fairly dry, the same thing, so I'm going to try and just highlight some of these wee drags of white that's coming down. So you're going near enough to the end of the boat. You're doing that. So going near enough to the end of the boat, not right at the end. Get a wee thick white bit and like that. And then just drag it. Another wee bit here. A wee bit more faint and shorter over there, but they're still there. And then we've got this one to do. This one's got a wee bit of the reflection of the boat, sort of sitting like that as well. So we'll just leave that sitting there for a wee minute and we'll go back to that. So I'm just checking that I've got all these in. So I've got one on there, a wee bit stronger on there. So although I'm dragging a long bit there, you can do these short bits over there, just a tiny wee bit to show that the boat's still going. Yeah. And by the time I've put my lines over there, they will come in the water. So I'm going to put a wee highlight on that boat there, so that I've got another wee highlight in the water there. Now I don't need it to be pure white, just a wee bit light. I think I've got another one there. Okay, so another wee fresh bit of white, I just whiten that as a small bit, so just use a small brush. So that's these bits here, so right in there. Now I've still got the highlight in the water round about there as well, so that's fine. Okay, so I'm going to let them dry a wee bit. I can't do drags when I cross the way now, I'll just drag it on. But what I just want to check is that I've got enough of them coming down long enough. So I'm going to pick up a wee bit of the purple, a wee bit of the dark grey. I've got a wee mixture of colours, so that's fine. So I can maybe go in there and maybe drag that down a bit more. And that one, just leave wee bits of your water in between though. A bit short because they're further back. And this one here has got a wee bit of that colour on there. Okay, so to make that show up, some of these can come down a wee bit more. And I'm just going to go in and do little bits of dark straight into the corners to make them nice and sharp. It's very wet, so you can really take your time and let bits dry a wee bit better than I am, so that you get a better go at putting the dark in them. But the minute you put them in, it just sharpens everything back up. But if everything's wet, you'll have difficulty doing that. But it's okay, you can go back to it. Okay, so like we did with the top, we're going to make it darker. I'm going to make it a wee bit darker just around the sides there. A bit more kind of blocky. Right, so this is now, I'm going to go across with a wee bit of the darker blue and the green together, quite sharp. You can even put a wee bit of Payne's grey in it just to keep it dark. So if I start down with a flat brush and I sort of come across wee bits like that. I'm going to take a wee smoothie brush now and just smooth that out with a wee bit of blue or green, not on the dark in that smooth. So the minute you do that, that puts everything back underneath. You can make a few wee blocks out it and then just do that something and a couple here. There's a few blocky bits and then a few lines. So you can make some of them a wee bit darker. When you make them a wee bit sharper, it just makes them stick out. So you can do a colour and you can do that, and you can even highlight some of them really white. But what you're doing is you're overlapping, not just one bit, but you're taking it right over. Sometimes you might even take one right over onto the other, like that. And the reason that you do that is to take them right over is so that they don't look like just a pattern on that one that you've done. You're making this the surface of the water. Right, so I'm going to clean my brush now. Got a couple of wee highlights on some of them, not all of them, just a few of them. So maybe on that one it's quite dark, so that'd be very light. And it's a good idea to dry your brush. If you dry your brush, your white sits nicer. So the dark is sitting on the platform for your light. So that gives you nice highlights. Keep it nice and fresh. Just remember that light in there. You can put a wee tint of yellow through some of the light. And if you overdo anything, just go over it with your blue. Start to freshen up some of the drags of white, and that helps to break some of them down as well. That neck could be brighter. And then you've got the big one coming down for there as well. Even though it's got the boat reflects and maybe they'll get a bit of light sort of dragging. And then as well. Okay, so what we're going to do now you can use a Sharpie pen for this. There's a couple of ways you can do it to do the sails. You can use a ruler and a Sharpie pen, or you can just do or you can just do the lines. Now a lot of people find it quite hard to do the lines, but we're not bothered about them being perfect, because if they come out too thick, we'll use a palette knife to put the bits of white on it just like that, and it's really just to make it look really busy over there. It doesn't have to be detailed. So I always find sometimes doing the lines it's better going that way rather than that way, because they turn out a bit thicker this way. So I'll just show you. So you've got some of the wee boats there, so you just line this wee brush on its side. And as I say, it might come out a wee bit thicker than you want, but I'll show you how to get around that as well. This just makes it look a lot busier now. And you can sharpen them up, make them a bit darker, put a bit of blue in them. So you can do this with your Sharpie pen with a ruler as well, and then you can interrupt them with bits of white. And you can make some go different ways. You don't have to go all dead straight, it can be shaped like into the sails. Just doing it at different heights. Okay, so what you can do the very same thing. You can do it with your white on the brush or a palette knife. I'll show you both ways. So make sure your brush is nice and dry. And take the white, and you can do, and you're not doing all of them, you're just kind of interrupting wee bits of white. like the water, if anything gets messed up, you just go back in with the other colour. Maybe some wee sails. You need to freshen your white up now and again because it does go kind of darker, just hitting different colours. So it's good to dot it on like that. You get a fresher white out as well. So there we are, that's just to make it a wee bit lighter. I'm going to soften this one a wee bit. Just one of my lines is going a different way there, I'm just going to soften it a wee tiny bit. And then I want to get the one of my dark in, so it will go really dark this time. A bit of the red's good for making it really dark as well. Right, so there we are. That's your abstract hamper. I hope you enjoyed that. Have fun. Bye bye.